Hi, everyone. Heather Williams here from the California Afterschool Network for another Fireside Chat with Michael Funk from the California Department of Education. And we're really excited to have three special guests with us today. We've got Angelina, Cindy, and Leah, who've all been on Fireside Chats before. And they're joining us today to talk a little bit about the budget and what's been going on since we chatted on Friday. So usually we don't do fireside chats so close back to back, but a lot has happened in a few short days. And so we wanted to make sure to give you some updates on what's been happening, and then just talk about what folks need to know moving forward and how to get involved and stay engaged. So with that, a lot to cover. So I'm going to just jump right in and share one of the big pieces of news. On Friday, we did mention the daily rate for ASES in 21st century, and that what was in the Department of Finance / governor's proposal was less than we were asking for. And this week, both the Senate and the Assembly budget subcommittees for education released their proposals, and they voted on them, and both of them to the detail proposed a $10.75 daily rate for ASES in 21st century. So this is a huge win. This is exciting news. We have not been in a situation before where Assembly and Senate have had such matching proposals come out, and those just went through yesterday and today. And so we're very excited about that, and that's a huge win for our field, a lot to celebrate. I do want to clarify, it is for ASES and 21st century. We still are waiting to hear if that includes 21st century assets program. We refer to that as kind of a separate program, but sometimes when it's going through the legislature, they lump them together. So there's, always the attention to detail, still trying to figure out the nuance there and what the daily rate will look like for the assets program. And we were also on a CA3 call yesterday. A lot of questions came up around the details, what this would look like as it's implemented. One of the shifts from the governor's proposal to what was in the proposals yesterday and today is that it is now shifted that all schools would receive the funding, and that there would be a requirement to serve 50% of unduplicated students. So that's a little bit of a shift from what the governor proposed. And again, as there's detailed questions about what does that mean, what does that look like, CA3 is kind of collecting that information, and we'll be in communication with folks to kind of determine those nitty-gritty details, but don't want that to take away from the huge win, and to be able to celebrate, and lots of appreciation to both of those subcommittees for the recognition of the need for that. Other big news, Michael, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about the other big exciting update.
Before I jump in, Heather, remind us who CA3 is.
Oh, yes, the California Afterschool Advocacy Alliance. And so CAN is the California Afterschool Network. CAN is a member of that, and so our guests today, they, in addition to representing their organizations, they're also very active in CA3.
And for the record, I'm not part of CA3. Wow, I'm still processing. I mean, I was still processing last Friday when the announcement came out that we'd have 1 billion this next year, and eventually moving to 5 billion. Was it 4 or 5 years? Anyway, it all shifted yesterday when, to my surprise and joy, the proposal from the Assembly or the Senate yesterday was to actually make the allocation 2.5 billion for this next year. And as Heather said, to make expanded learning and this expanded learning opportunity, this program, universal for every single public and charter school in California, excluding non-classroom based charters. That was called out in the legislation. and even more significantly for the full 5 billion implementation amount to be realized in 3 years. So 2.5 to 5 billion in 3 years' time. With that, I think there are some other things. There were some questions that we had. We knew that there was some intentionality about not just putting more money into the ASES program. So they want it to be ASES-like. They want it to complement. That is the intent. But it's not under all this, it won't be under all the same rules and guidelines. So I know that one of the questions that has keep coming up and many of you are still asking for is, but what about the flexibility we had for ASES funding? And I've said on the Fireside chats, it's not looking as likely as I thought it might have been, 2 or 3 months ago, because of how quickly and how dramatically the state is opening up. And in the budget hearings, if you had a chance to tune in, you heard a very clear statement that distance learning will not happen in the fall. If a family chooses not to send their child to the school, they have to apply for independent study. There's a lot of details to be worked out about that, a lot of language in the next few weeks. But so the message back to me was, so if everyone's going back to school, then having the flexibility for people to work anytime during the day or anywhere doesn't make as much sense to the policymakers. So, but that doesn't, so there's some connection to reference to the ASES Ed Code with the $2.5 billion. So for example, in the governor's proposal, which we knew was going to get fleshed out a lot. And this is as well, this is budget language. There's a meeting starting on Friday to start to work specifically with myself and some other folks from CDE to meet with the Department of Finance and the Assembly and Senate staff to start to work out very specific things that are going to go into the Trader bill. Then we're going to start knowing more. So we should start to know more at some point next week. But at this point, in the governor's budget was a reference to the portion of Ed Code that called out staff requirements and staffing ratios. And of course, this allows for a great expansion of the pre-K and TK. And so there will be some language. There's a different ratio required to serve the youngest ones. And there will be some other requirements being discussed about the qualifications those staff should have that would be slightly different than if you're serving 1-to-20 ratio with the older students. But for now, this bill specifically links to 8482.3 and calls out relating to 2 elements of 8482.3. The first are the programmatic elements. And at 8482.3, for those of you who have not memorized your Ed Code, it's an educational and literacy element in which tutoring or homework assistance is provided in one or more of the following areas: language arts, mathematics, history and social science, computer training, or science. The second element says an educational enrichment element that may include, but need not be limited to, fine arts, career technical education, recreation, physical fitness, and prevention activities. And as you know, that guidance in Ed Code allows a lot of local flexibility and allows a lot of local design to design something that is really targeting meeting the students, what the students need, and in fact, what students deserve. The other element that aligns itself in 8482.3 is the reporting. So we know there'll be reporting. I know that most of you, your mind is ticking off and you've already got that list of questions that is just, it's like a ticker tape running through your head. We'll get there, because just imagine what is going on in my head. So we will get there. But we just have to say, what a moment, what a moment. And I'm so glad we have our 3 guests on to share what this moment is for them and what it means to them. So Heather, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, just a few more super technical things, and then I can't wait to turn it over to our guests and hear from you all. I also did want to mention I would not be a part of the CAN team if I didn't mention that both the Assembly and Senate proposals also called out quality standards. So referencing
Yes.
the importance for the new programming to reflect the quality standards that we love and hold so dear. And then, you know, in terms of what happens next, now that both of these proposals have passed out of Assembly and Senate, the budget subcommittees, it's going to go to the full Senate budget committees. And so next week, Tuesday, it'll be the Senate. Next Wednesday, it'll be the Assembly. Some of the hearings have been moved around, so it could change. But as of right now, we expect this to be voted on early next week by the budget committees. And then more to come on that, but that's kind of the important next step. But now I do want to turn it over to our guests. And so I'm going to turn it over to Angelina first and, you know, have her introduce herself and then talk a little bit about the role of advocacy. And we were chatting about this a little bit before we jumped on, and we would not be where we are today if it wasn't for the tremendous effort of the field, of all of you, especially the three of you on this chat. You all are very active and vocal, and we have a lot of appreciation for all that you do. And so, Angelina, if you want to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about how you're feeling, and then talk about this piece around advocacy and what you all have been doing.
Great, happy to. Thank you, Heather. My name is Angelina Hernandez. I'm the Senior Director of Strategic Projects for Think Together. This week has been very exciting. We at Think Together, and then I know in the expanded learning field, have been waiting for a moment like this. We have been advocating for years and years, as you can see my shirt, Help Us Save After School, focusing on delivering these crucial programs for our students, for our families, and for our communities. We know the impact, we have seen it. I know, most of us on this call and those who are watching this have different roles within the after school programs. And I, like many of those on this call, started, over 15 years ago, 16 years ago, as a field line staff member serving kids after school. And if you would have told me years later I would still be in after school, that this was my career path, I would have told you you're crazy. But here I am, and expanded learning has a place in my heart, and it's a chosen career path. And it's historic moments like this where those who are just getting into after school, I get emotional because I love our field, can see this as a career path. And this is something that they can continue to do long term. And with the increase in our daily rate, and then a COLA, the cost of living allowance, that makes all the difference for our after school professionals, and makes staying in after school and growing and developing this field and serving our students and families and communities a reality. And, as I look back and, Michael kind of alluded to earlier, and Heather, it's so exciting, but it's also so nerve-wracking to see what this means, to see exactly, what our deliverables will be. But if it means getting to serve more communities and more students, and develop the amazing leaders that we see every day at our programs, it's 100% worth it. And so just to see the way our field has really come together and used their voice to advocate for the programs that we, know make an impact in our communities, and help our decision makers and elected officials understand and learn about our field. As we heard, the Assembly and Senate both had similar proposals, which is very unique, something we're not used to. And I, have to give some credit to our staff who have used their voice to really share the impact of these programs and voice the need of our field.
Malia, let's have Malia talk a little bit. I know also same thing. If you want to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what this moment means to you. And then I think, also there's still some work to be done. We're not done. We're not across the finish line. So maybe if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, so Malia Villarreal, I'm with California Teaching Fellows Foundation, and I do public and strategic development. I too, and I think the whole field kind of felt excited when we saw kind of that first May revise and there's lots of huge investments in expanded learning programs. And most people who know me is like, I never really am lost for words. I usually have a lot to say, but there's this moment of excitement, but also, well, what does that mean? And how do we actually take this moment and make the most of it? And so I think all of us are waiting for those details. And Heather, to your point, we can't stop the lever now, right? I keep saying it, if we don't elevate the needs of our field, who will? And we need to bring it to light. So I think it's exciting that there's this huge investment. Well, the way I describe it to people is it's like if a parent wants to throw money at their child and think that that's love and then that's enough. We really need to elevate our voices and the quality of our programs and our staff and what the rate means for the field, and think long-term sustainability to make sure that we can make the most of these funds and that we don't really collapse this infrastructure of expanded learning. I think a lot of people have anxiety where I know our staff wants to step up and make a difference, and we've been asking for this for so long. But it's almost overwhelming when we think about how much investment without the details. And so that's why it's our job, right, as advocates at all different levels, is to continue to tell our story and why we're asking for this higher reimbursement rate, right? I think a lot of us are worried, like, okay, if this funding does come down, like, how do we hire people? How do we pay them a fair living wage? How do we make sure that we can give that quality programs? And from our experience talking to our legislators here in the Central Valley is they didn't quite understand the reimbursement rate. They didn't quite understand how, that just throwing money at it wouldn't fix the problem, or wouldn't completely fix the problem, right? That we have to make sure that our staff can make more than minimum wage, right? We talk about this all the time, and we related this to the legislature, is that, if you have an in and out advertising, they're paying several dollars over minimum wage. And then we're asking our expanded learning staff who stepped up during the pandemic to serve our community to be paid minimum wage or less than somebody at in and out. Like, there's just no way. We're not going to find these people. We're not going to retain them. And how are we going to show our appreciation to our staff and workforce? So I think it's really elevating to our elected officials what this means on the ground. Whatever that means, because every community is different, and then asking them specifically to raise this issue with the governor's office. I think the legislature is definitely aligned, which is so exciting, but we have to penetrate to the governor's office and Department of Finance so they really understand if they want to make this investment and make a difference long-term in our communities, that we need to get the reimbursement rate issue right. We need to make sure that 21st Century and ASES is set up for success. And we need to make sure that we're not leaving out our older youth, right? We didn't really talk too much about that today, but older youth were definitely left out of a lot of investments, and they need the support just as much. So I just, challenge our staff and our advocates to continue sharing online, continue making those phone calls and advocating, because we do have a seat at the table, right? They're coming to us and they're asking for our opinions, and now we need to be honest, right? We're so humble in our field and we make magic out of nothing, but now is the time to really elevate what we truly need to make that difference. But anyway, I can go on and on, Heather. I think you already know. I will stop there, but happy to answer any more questions.
All right. Well, Cindy, we'll turn it over to you. Tell us a little about yourself and how you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I share the same sentiment as these ladies. I've dedicated my life to expanded learning. 14 years in, I couldn't be prouder. But, I just wanted to validate the feelings that I believe are out there. I see it every single day, with the frontline staff that we work with, and just all the uncertainty that's out there, and people have questions and we're not getting the details fast enough. And, we're seeing a 2-year cap. Now it's been extended from, it was 5 years, now it's 3 years. So there's a lot of fluidity to this, investment. And also one of the things that I want to just, let our field know is I continue to think about these things. They keep me up at night about what happens after those 5 years. Are kids going to be as considered, a high priority? Those are the things that keep me up at night, because we know that in expanded learning, 9 out of 10 kids are students of color that attend an after school program. So when we talk about these investments, we know that that's going to close the conditions that only, eliminate those deep inequities in California. So when I hear about large investments, my thought immediately goes to ongoing. Is this ongoing? Let me see the details. What's actually codified into ed code? What's going to be our after action to making it permanent? And keeping that pressure up, keeping the momentum, like both ladies here shared, that is critical. Having our parents tell their story, sharing our impact with the legislators, having our school partners, really go to the bat for us and letting them know, like, this is, they have made, so many things happen before COVID, after COVID, and we're continuing to dive into this, sea of uncertainty, and, just really letting the field know that this is the time for us to be strategic. It's a time for us to be innovative, be very flexible, and know that at the end of the day, we all do what's best for kids. And we need to do that not only in program, but also advocate for them, right? So if you haven't seen it already, you can text Cal After School Works to 52886, because we're going to need everybody's voice at this point right now. We need to ensure that the governor and the Department of Finance see this proposal and that they sign it without hesitation. And that we're going to also continue to advocate to push, Assembly Bill 1112 over the finish line, so that way we can start getting some of that security, being codified into ed code, so that way we can provide some relief to our staff. I wanted to share something that I ran across social media the other day by CalWorks that shared in the Bay Area, it takes a worker who's working at a minimum wage rate, 140 hours a week they have to work to afford to rent a 1-bedroom apartment. So when I think about that, and I think about, our expanded learning professionals and the circumstances that we continue to push put them in, there's so much change that's possible if we all work together. If we keep, that goal at the center of everything, that we're not only trying to change the odds for kids, but we're trying to improve working conditions for our after school professionals who have, they rise to the moment each and every single day. And we need to continue to, after this is over, continue to advocate for that daily increase, that cost of living adjustment. Also revisiting any ed code that just doesn't make sense when it comes up to ramp up costs and things like that, with administrative, costs and things of that nature. So I just wanted to put that out there, that all of those feelings are, I validate them. I see them every day in the field, and just use that as that fuel to, drive your passion, drive that change, that advocacy to create that difference. Because as you know, we're creating that change right now. We are making the difference every time we decide to pick up that phone, text that legislator, tweet that legislator, email, call them. It takes 5 minutes a day. And the difference that we're going to be seeing just in a short couple of years, that's going to be like my happy place. Once we get there and we're starting to see, kids that, through this pandemic have had the hardest times, and that they're now able to see that new chapter of life where families are actually able to breathe, they're able to provide for their families. And that's also true for our expanded learning professionals as well. So that really is what drives home for me, and I will continue to advocate on their behalf.
Well, I think we are almost running out of time, so I want to wrap up with some deep appreciation for the three of you and all the work and advocacy work that you do, and for joining us today and sharing all that you shared with us. And Cindy, what was that number again? Can you say that again? It'll be in the text, but if you want to say that again.
It's Cal Afterschool Works, all caps, to the number 52886.
Awesome. So if you haven't yet, make sure you text that number. We'll put the link in the all the text underneath this video, so you can access that as well. And so, we have a couple very important call to action items for our field. We need to keep the pressure on to make sure that we do secure the $10.75 daily rate. And so, directing lots of appreciation to those who've already supported it, and lots of advocacy towards those that still need to kind of sign on to that. And we're also really pushing, as Malia talked about, middle and high school students have been left out of the new funding, and we know the older youth need our supports as well. And so trying to secure that. And so we'll make sure you have all the resources along with this video to continue your advocacy. But again, lots of appreciation to the three of you for joining us. And I think with that, Michael, I'm going to turn it over to you for your closing words.
Well, amen to everything that was just shared, and not only the words, but the passion and the commitment. You were bringing me along with you and all that enthusiasm, and I'm just so glad we brought you on. During the pandemic, when we started giving flexibility, we talked a lot about making sure we give every child what they deserve. Not what they need. That's a different conversation. What they deserve. They deserve our best. They deserve the opportunity. They deserve opportunities to grow and to explore and to dream. That's what they deserve. And this budget really has the power to bring that to reality. There's not enough money to serve every kid in every school, but there's enough money to go to every single school in California. For those that don't know, that's right now we serve with our ASES in 21st Century about 4,500 school campuses. This is 10,000. Just let that sink in. So what keeps me up is whether or not this massive investment can truly bring a transformative opportunity to the children that deserve it the most, is to be worked out in the details of the policy and to be worked out in the details of the implementation. So y'all with me on this Zoom, you're good advocates, you're going to advocate, you're going to keep pounding that drum. As soon as I hang up from this Zoom, I'll be going back at it to try to negotiate those details, anticipate, and work over the next several days to make sure that the precision is there to really do what our children deserve and our adults deserve. And then we all have to work on implementation, because this is something to celebrate. And I think of course, we're not going to pop the champagne cork until we get the governor's signature, but I got a good feeling, folks. I got a good feeling. And if you thought you worked hard before, strap in, because to not put the effort into this to make it transformative for children is causing harm. It will cause harm. We can't. So this is our time. We're ready. Malia, Angelina, Cindy, are you ready?
I'm
Ready.
I was born ready.
Yes,
All right.
we stay ready.
And do all of this as we lead with love. Back to you, Heather.
All right. Well, thanks everyone, and until next time.